So, go on, say something there.
Nah, you lost the game.
There's people listening. I wasn't playing a game. Can't play a game you're not playing, mate.
Yeah. Have you never heard of the game?
Yeah, it was a book by, what's his name? Years ago.
No, not that game. Not by Red Pill Sleazebags.
Yes. I remember that book came out. I remember that book came out. All these fucking pickup artists were crying into their fucking soda water about how it ruined the game for them forever. They've got no idea, these people, how these things work.
Why did they say it ruined the game forever?
Well, because I can't remember the guy's name now, and it could come to me, but it was basically because women will read it and they'll know what we're playing at.
No.
Well, one, they won't read it, and if they do, you're probably looking at 1 in 100 will actually read the book, and then 5 years later, it's all been forgotten anyway. It's 20 years ago now, but a few years later, and everyone's forgotten about it. It's just fucking laughable the way people react. They're like children. It's a little bit like the way they behave online, actually.
Not too dissimilar.
New platform comes along and everyone's going, this is going to be the giant killer. And then, do you remember? I thought it was called now.
Oh, something House?
Yeah, was it House?
House? What was it called?
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
We can't even remember the fucking platform. And everyone's going, this is going to be the valley. This is going to be the fucking giant killer, and this is a new game town. It's going to fuck off. It's just bollocks, man.
You could tell how bored everyone was in COVID.
Hey?
You could tell how bored everybody was in COVID.
Was it COVID? Was it before COVID?
No, it was COVID. It was COVID when it became popular. Yeah.
All right, so that's how much of an impact it made. Here's the thing.
COVID.
I mean, we talked about direct mail today, but let's answer the question we've got in a minute. But first of all, I just want to test and sort of tease people first. Have you noticed recently, the last couple of days, the big players in the cloud area, Microsoft with their Azure platform, we got Alphabet with whatever they've got, Amazon are by far and away the leaders in this with AWS, and to a lesser extent Meta. The 4 big players, they're all sniping at each other now. Google has just basically been making noises about referring Microsoft to the antitrust people for their Azure platform. And when you get these multi-trillion-dollar companies sniping at each other and saying it's not fair, I mean, it's a fucking irony, really. It's just it's amazing. You know there's something funny going on. And here's the thing, the internet now is so ubiquitous, there is no longer any competitive advantage for business owners in the main to using it. I just want to plant that thought in people's heads, because 20 years ago when I started my business as a copywriter, there was a competitive advantage if you knew how to use the internet. Now there isn't, because 1, there's massive competition. 2, most people are better educated. But 3, even if they're not, the platforms do all the hard work for you. And so there is no competitive advantage, really, for the most part, in knowing how to use the internet, Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever. Right? So what is the advantage that people then try to trade on? Price. Because that's the only one they got left. So we're going to be talking about direct mail today. And specifically, what's the question we've got?
Well, the first question is about lists. So it's quite a big one. So stick with me.
Oh, God. I'm ready. I'm listening.
If and only if it is appropriate, could you please elaborate or expand upon the subject of lists themselves? I have a perception of a gargantuan Excel spreadsheet copied from the BT phone book or Yellow Pages. When you talk about a list of 100 or 1 million, how is that derived? How are these things priced? By whom and from where? What is included? Name, number, packet of crisps? Are there any traps, things to avoid? Do you just ask for people who identify as penguins following the religion of Jedi and Skegness or something else? Assuming they match my avatar, of course. Does the cost come from search filters or the number of people on the list? What elements make a good or bad list? Are there grades to lists? For example, do they hold some back for bigger bidders, like you might keep the 40-year-old scotch away from your teenage kids or for that special occasion. In short, there are list brokers. Oh no, that's my answer to a very long question that then Holly said we'll answer on the podcast. So basically, what is a list? How's it priced? Where'd you get it from? What's included?
Here's my answer to all of those questions. Yes. All of those things.
And that has been the Well-Fed Business Podcast. Thank you for listening. Bye, Albert.
The question is so general as to be meaningless. So I'm not even going to go through it bit by bit and answer it. I'm just going to talk for a minute about lists. And then if that person who is nameless in the question wants to come back and ask a more precise question, I'll happily engage with them on that. But your list is essentially your audience, right? Doesn't matter where you get it from, where it is, it's your audience. So it's often useful to think of your direct connections on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, as being kind of your list very, very loosely, or your email list. It's the people who you're going to send stuff to, or you want to see your stuff. Now, where do you get a list from for direct mail? Because that's what we're talking about here, really, aren't we, I think?
Yeah.
Well, you can buy them. And there are these things called list brokers. There's marketingfile.com. There are several others. There's like Zoom Info, who are primarily phone numbers and emails. But also they do have some postal addresses too. You can buy lists from, for instance, magazines. I've got a thing up there. It's now probably 17 years out of date, but I've still got it somewhere. Lists and data sources, lads. You can probably still buy that or get access to it. You can go into business direction again. So there's a million and one ways to get postal addresses for direct mail, and they all have advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of going to a list broker is convenience, because you speak to these people, you give them, they call them selects. You give them your list of criteria, and they will add those filters, and they'll give you a list of people, right? The thing to remember is a list broker, unless you're dealing with one with a lot of integrity, which often we're not, because they're in the business of selling you names, and records can cost anything from threepence to that's 3 pence. People who don't get my accent, 3 pence to whatever you're willing to pay, because the more precise your list, the more specific you are, and then the more data you want, the more you'll pay. So if you just want a list of, say, I don't know, email addresses, you might pay 10p per record with a name. If you want email address, mobile phone number, postal address, you'll pay more. If you want those same things for multiple use, so you can send them more than one thing, you'll pay yet more. If you want all those things for multiple use and for you to be the only one who buys that data, you'll pay a lot more. Because remember, unless you say otherwise explicitly, the data you're buying is also available to others, just as it would be in the phone book. Okay? So when you're buying from a list broker, the two words to pay attention to are caveat emptor, buyer beware. So don't go buying a massive list of 20,000 names thinking this is sorted, right? Test small. When I did some work with a client years ago, we tested, and he had a lot of money, so he was prepared to do this. We tested in batches of 5,000 with different selects on things like business size, business area. And we probably burned through 100,000 names before we got a pretty good idea of what was going to work, what wasn't. Then we sent out 1 million of the fucking things. And he got 8,000 new customers from it, which, if you think in percentage terms, is only 0.8 of 1%. But that's not the point. He then had a list of buyers, which now is, the rest is history. So list selection is a skill, all right? And like any skill, you're going to start off really fucking bad at it, and you'll only get better by practice. Now, there's some more caveats here as well, and that is, I got a client who, when I say recently, I'm talking the last 12 months. In the last 12 months has bought some data And he went through the smart thing and manually verified it. And he found about 20 to 25% of it was shit. This was for direct mail, and the addresses were just wrong, and people weren't there anymore. This was commercial data, so it was businesses. So businesses weren't there anymore. Some had closed down. The person that the name was attached to, the business was there, but the person wasn't. Okay, and 20%. Now you can say, well, that's just wastage. Fine, but that then means your cost of your record is effectively gone up by whatever percentage, because there's so much wastage. And none of this is good or bad. It just is, and you have to work around it. So if you're paying £1 for a record, which you could be, and you get 100 records, but 20% of them are shit, well, that means you've got 80 records, which are okay, for 100 quid. Well, that suddenly means the cost per record is what, 120 or something like that. All right, 125, something like that. So the cost goes up, but you've got to factor these things in. Now, the way we teach direct mail, and we're going to say more about this because it's a great lead into what I was going to talk about anyway, planning it on my dog walk, is like any form of marketing, the better the quality of your list, all right, or your audience, we can use these two synonymously, the better results you're going to get. And it makes everything easier. It makes your messaging easier. Actually makes reaching them easier. Certainly more cost effective. It makes it easier to sell because you're talking to one kind of person about one kind of thing and one kind of sales process. Makes delivery easier too because you're selling one kind of thing to one kind of person to do one kind of job. All right. So if you're going to take our approach to these things, which is we are moving more and more and more towards more high-end direct mail, because I can't remember whether we were recording at the time. I know I said it at the beginning. There is no or very small competitive advantage these days to being really good online. The people who are doing really well online, like influencers and people who are popular, they're mostly being popular and stuff, selling how to be good online. There are not many people who are influencers doing well at what they actually do. So, there are a few examples, like Alex Hormozy, for instance. He's doing great guns in the business sector, and he's an influencer. And in the business sector, that fucking horrible, nauseating Bartlett bloke. His face I see popping up everywhere. LinkedIn is giving me halitosis because I keep sicking up in my mouth when I'm on the platform, Some of these people, but some of these people are doing okay at what they do and being influencers, but they're very fucking rare. But of course, it's the dream, isn't it? Everyone wants to be the fucking 5-year-old who's making $1 million a year selling reviews of toys from Haribo. I don't know how fucking sweets are they.
Yeah.
Whatever the fucking
toys from everywhere.
Yeah. They're fucking few and far between, but everyone aspires to that because it must be quite a cushy number to have at the age of 5. Most of us, it's going to be hard work, and you should be prepared for that, really, and go into it with that in mind, and then you might be pleasantly surprised, as opposed to think you're going to be one of these guys who makes a living gaming online and then be fucking tragically disabused of that notion when you don't make a penny. So what we're doing is we're there's no right or wrong way to do this, guys and girls. You want to make a list of high-end or high-quality targets, right, in your mailings. Probably the easiest and best way to do it is doing grunt work yourself. A good place to start is probably LinkedIn. Right, so our target market, for instance, I'm not really giving anything away here because I'm not going to go into the details of why. If you want to know why, well, you can pay me. Our target really is people delivering soft services. Their business is about 500,000 to 5 million. And their clients are also delivering soft services. There's a reason for all of this. Well, we can kind of take a stab at finding those people on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is a great place to find people, but it's not necessarily, in fact, I would say it's definitely not, depending on what you're doing, but for most of us, it's definitely not the best place to engage those people. So we find these people on LinkedIn, and then we just do grunt work. We'll go to their website. We might go to a company's house. We'll go to other websites. We might call them and say, we want to send you something. What's the best address to use to reach this guy? And of course, some gatekeepers will say, fuck off, we're not giving you the address. And others will say, oh, that's great, that sounds lovely. Here's the guy's address or the girl's address. It's just grunt work. And of course, most people won't do it, which is great. Because if you will, then you've got an immediate advantage. And it's like any form of personalization, because really that's what we do, and that's why we're doing it. The more bespoke, the more tailored to the individual you make your message, or however you deliver it, then the better results you're going to get. Oh, lovely smiling his girlfriend. Look. The better results.
There's dogs outside my
Oh, wow, even better.
And
The better results you're going to get. You know, the example I always use is the lady who hand wrote, I don't know how many it was, but it was certainly scores of long copy sales letters and made $1 million from the mailing. Now, most of us wouldn't be prepared to do that, me included, because my handwriting is awful and it hurts when I do it. But that was ultimate. You know, these letters were probably 20% personalized, 80% copy and boilerplate, but she hand wrote every single one. One of the guys we're talking to now is kind of a client, kind of a service provider, a bit of both. He got 4 booked meetings out of a mailing of just 13 because it was very highly targeted and tailored to the individual. Most people won't bother doing it. Now, back to what I was saying at the beginning. This is all connected and relevant, right? I was saying before about there's no competitive advantage in being online these days. It's a little bit like having a degree. If everyone's got a degree, no one's got a degree because there's no competitive advantage in the job market. This upsets people. You know, men, I almost guarantee you are physically weaker than your granddad was at your age. You know? If you were to put yourself next to your granddad at your age, say you're in your 40s, 30s, 50s, I guarantee your granddad was stronger and tougher and more resilient than you were, unless he'd had an injury or something, all right? And that's going to hurt most guys' egos, but you're still going to feel okay, because if you look around you at your contemporaries, you're probably okay. My mate Toby, my PT, you know, he's noticed this. He says guys in their 30s and 40s and even 50s, they'll say, yeah, I'm all right, I'm not in bad shape. But that's because they're comparing themselves to their contemporaries in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And guys, most guys in their 30s and 40s and 50s are weak, overweight, unhealthy. You might be okay compared to your contemporaries and your peers, but if you compare yourself to your granddad and even your father, you're not. You're a weakling. You are weak. You are flabby. You are soft. Okay, and I feel quite smug because I'm not. But then again, that's because I fucking work at it. You know. Yes, Mr. McCulloch is being incredibly arrogant here, but hey, that's because he's earned it. But it's true. Now, it's the same online. It's the same online. You know, there used to be a competitive advantage if you could get good at this stuff, but if you now look around, you're just the same as everyone else. And if you don't believe me, just go online. Just look. LinkedIn is a great example of this. Just look at your contemporaries, your peers, people in your industry of any age, and you all look the same. The best example I use for this is copywriters, because they all look the fucking same. And they're all, for the most part, they're all really shit. You know? And if you want to see how shit they are, just look at their About Me section when they're writing about how I was born at a very young age and I love writing words. And I did fucking English literature as a degree, you know? You're a shit copywriter. And don't tell me you can sell other people's shit, because you can't even fucking sell yourself. Your work, your copy is shit. You're shit. Your website's shit. All right? But they're all shit. They all look the same. All right? So I think this notion of the internet being great for your average business owner has been a blip in the internet. At the beginning, it was great. We've had 20 probably easy years of it. And now it's not easy anymore. And even the big boys are suffering to the extent they're sniping at each other because they're finding it hard as well. All right? The writing is on the wall, I'm telling you. Everyone's online. Everyone can use the platform. Everyone can do this, that, and the other with their social media marketing. Well, if everyone could do it and everyone's doing it easily, then effectively, no one's really doing it because you're all the same. The only competitive advantage anyone's going to get in business. Now, I'm talking about people here who are not necessarily selling stuff off their website and they're not doing, e-commerce, whatever. That is different. I mean, to do e-commerce, you've got to be online by definition, right? I'm talking about service providers and bricks and mortar businesses who can benefit from this kind of stuff because you're selling from a place or doing something for someone. you will find your competitive advantage is going to come from doing what others won't do. And all they can't do, and what they won't do, is direct mail. Now, you might say, yeah, but if everyone does direct mail, that will become saturated too. You would be right, partially. But there's two things here. First, they won't. They really, really won't. What most people will do is they will continue to fucking tread water with the rising tide of internet mediocrity. That's what they will continue to do, because they're like lemmings, that's what they'll do. They're like sheep. They'll just follow the herd. First thing. Second thing, even if, and I am noticing direct mail is becoming more popular now from people, or maybe it's just my feed is showing that because that's what I'm interested in. Even if more people start doing direct mail, there's a massive difference. There's massive opportunity and massive difference between sending a letter and sending a fucking shock and awe package. As Dan Kennedy says, this will terrify most of you, I'm sure. As Dan Kennedy shouldn't. As Dan Kennedy says, the person who's prepared to spend the most to get a new client will always win. Now, translate that to direct mail and offline marketing in general, and the competitive advantage it will give you. The more you're prepared to spend to get a client by sending them stuff they think is just too good to throw away and they cannot ignore, the better you will get, the better results you will get. So think about sending a letter, or maybe think about sending a letter with a book with a load of other letters inside it that take them through a journey. And with the book, you send a mug and some tea bags so they can sit down and have a cup of tea while they're reading the book. But you also send them a bookshelf to put the book on when they finish reading it. They never put it up, but it's not the point. That will get you attention. That will get you responses. That will get you business. How much will it cost you to send? You're probably looking at about £25 per package. Well, if that's the case, that's neither good nor bad. It just is. But if you're selling something that costs 18 grand minimum, like we do, then you've only got to get one and you bought a lot of fucking bookshelves and books. Okay. But here's the thing. Because you're spending £25 per person, possibly more, you could be sending it to the right people. We circle all the way back to list selection now. You wouldn't want to be sending a £25 package cold to a bunch of fucking names you got off a list broker. I don't care who this list broker is. It could be motherfucking Teresa herself. I still wouldn't trust them. Okay? You'd have to build this list yourself. How do you do that? You do it by grunt work. You do it by speaking to people. Right? You do it by getting on the phone and finding out what the addresses are and really digging into these people. Maybe get the 2 last year's accounts from Companies House to see what kind of turnover they've got, what kind of profit they've got. You do your due diligence, because the quickest way to go broke with direct mail is to send an expensive mailing to an untested list. That's guaranteed to lose you a lot of money, unless you're really, really fucking lucky. So circle all the way back. List selection is absolutely crucial. The best way to do it, fucking shoe leather and hard work, mate. I'm good at this.
Good on. You're not bad, mate.
Drop your mic. Remember that hour I did at Elite?
How could I forget? I was poorly ill and I didn't want to move in order to interrupt you. So I sat there and suffered, mate.
Here's the truth. If we'd have recorded that, we could have flogged that as a program for a fucking grand and people would get in a bargain.
It was rather epic. And I do like the way you just went full circle back to lists. There's one member in our free group who I get the feeling is probably the person who asked this question. They shoe leathered it. They built their own list. I can't remember exactly how many letters they sent out, but it was all customized. It all looked it had that homemade look about it. It didn't look like a mass mailing whatsoever. The little things, their name and the address was handwritten on the envelope. They included a couple of goodies in there, such as tea bags. And I can't remember the exact number, so I'm not going to give an exact number. The nature of their business means it's a long sales cycle anyway, so they were never going to win an instant client. Their aim with this direct mailing was to get their foot in the door, so when the next sales cycle came around to start a conversation, they'd be in for it. They're now in negotiation for, we're talking several tens of thousands of pounds of new client work. And they sent, I believe, 30 to 50 of these packages that would have cost them no more than £3. So we're looking at £150. and they're in negotiation for several tens of £1,000s worth of new work.
This is, I mean, I wouldn't say that's usual, but it's not unusual either.
No, and let's be clear, there's no money in the bank yet, but the direct mail did its job. They are now in direct negotiation with their targeted dream ideal clients. And they have done this off the back of listening to the podcast and engaging in the book community. So kudos to you. Everybody listening to this pretty much is in the group already, so everyone will know who it is. The funny thing is, before this, they were spending several, I believe thousands, low thousands, on Google ads and Facebook ads. They listened to us, they saw the light, they moved the budget.
Yeah, there are lots of reasons. It's not as simple as saying people are stupid. I do say that often, because they are, let's face it. But it is not that people are just stupid. If I had to, in 80-20 terms, if I had to say, John, what do you think is the biggest reason people don't use so much direct mail now? I would say, and this is going to sound very facetious, I'd say the reason people don't do so much direct mail now is because people don't do so much direct mail now. And what I mean by that is people look around when they decide to do some marketing, get some more business. They look around to see what everyone else is doing in their industry. Most won't even look outside their industry, and they really should. But most will look around to see what their peers are doing, and they'll say, well, that's what you do, so that's what we'll do. That's what I mean by, they're not doing direct mail because they're not doing direct mail.
I think one level deeper than that is just because it's hard. Like, to break it down.
Another thing, yeah.
The boring fundamental reason it's hard. You speak about this all the time. You was the one that painted it for me in black and white. What skill set do you need to post on social media?
I need one. Yeah, I just need to be ready to use a fucking keyboard.
Yeah, an opinion, some bollocks, and tip-de-tap, because the quality of writing, the standard is so low because there's no risk. You risk
no cost, no risk.
With direct mail, tell them the stack, John, because you said it, I believe, on a community.
You want to send direct mail. Now let's just say you're just going to send a letter. Okay, that's as very basic as we can get. Then I'm going to build up on it to do something that's probably going to be will be much more effective. But just say you're going to send a letter. Well, first you have to write the letter. Okay. Now, most people, if I say to you, I want you to write me a sales letter, even copywriters will freeze. And they've got, I don't know how to do it. And then if they have a go, it'll be about them. So first, if you want this to be effective, you've got to write a proper sales letter of some kind. You've got to understand, that's a skill in itself. So you need a certain amount of copywriting skill. Then you've got to buy the envelopes. You've got to print the letter. You've got to sign it. If you're going to do this properly, you're going to have to then write the name and address on the envelope by hand. Or you could print labels if you wanted to, but if you're going to do it properly, you write them by hand. So let's say you do 100. Well, that's a good evening's fucking work. And your hand will hurt afterwards. Then you've got to get a stamp, and you've got to go stick. We've got to buy the stamps first. Then you've got to go to the post office. Yeah, stick the fucking stamp. We get this so for decent. But again, 100 stamps will probably take you, I don't know, half an hour. It's really fucking boring. Then you've got to go down to the post office and post them. Well, that's probably, how much is the first class stamp in the UK now? £1 or something?
That I've got no idea. First class
stamp for a letter.
Stamp. Okay, price. £1.25.
Fucking hell. Oh, if you'd asked me, I'd have said 50p, because that's what it was when I left the UK. So, £1.25. So you're probably, when you factor in the cost of the envelope, the wear and tear on your car, you're probably looking at a couple of quid per sake, just for the sake of argument, to give the numbers. So for a mailing of 100, which is a very small mailing, it's 200 quid. And that's 200 quid before you even put the fucking thing in the post box. Then you post it. Then you sit and you wait. And then you've got to deal with the responses. And these responses, well, it depends how you write the letter, but generally speaking, you'll probably get something from your website, an email, or possibly a phone call. Maybe a visit to your shop or your place of business, if that's what you must do. then you've got to deal with that. And then if you want to track all this, well, that's a whole new can of worms, because how do you track direct mail? Well, you can, but I've seen people, and this shows how fucking ignorant they are, that you can't track direct mail. Yes, you can, but it's hard work, because maybe you have to use a bespoke phone number, or an email address. Or if you want to be clever and you're looking at maybe some volume here, maybe you say, phone this number and ask for Mr. Jeffries. And you know that Mr. Jeffries is a tick against this campaign and no other, because last time was Mr. Roberts. You know, this is how they used to do it, old school. Well, this is for a fucking letter, goddammit. Now let's start doing something else. Let's say you're going to send a letter and a box of stuff. Well, you've got all the same fucking problem, but you've got to source the stuff. You've got to get mugs, say you got mugs made, tea bags delivered, all got to get them packed, get a book delivered, put in the box, packed up, letters printed, put in the box, everything made sure it's okay, seal the box up, post that fucker. How much does it cost us to send a box at the minute? 16 quid?
I'll Google it again.
No, us, personally.
Oh, us with all the things in. Yeah. I was closer to... It's closer to 20. It's about 17 to 18.
Oh, so we send, it costs us about, again, for the sake of it, it costs us 20 quid per box we send. We send out quite a lot of these boxes. And then you've got the same thing, you got to deal with responses. It gets even more complicated. Yeah? So now you need to do copywriting. You got all these fucking things, you got all these moving parts. Well, now what happens if you've got a mail sequence? So you send a letter, people respond, you send a box, then you send some more follow-up. And then after 6 months, the people who responded, you send them a phone. Okay? Pre-programmed with your number. We've had a conversation, you said you were interested, you went quiet. Have things turned out as you wanted to? If they have, ignore me. If they've not, phone me with this phone. Okay? 6 months down the line. But the phone's going to cost you 30, 40 quid, probably. Okay? And then there's all the stuff to do in between that. And you've got to manage all that. And you've got to, if you've got a constant list of people maybe contacting you, a constant stream of people contacting you for info, and they all go into this sequence, well, you've got to track that somehow. Because some days you won't have, Connor's getting a letter, John's getting a box, Jeremy over here is getting a fucking newsletter for 6 months. Fred over there, 6 months ago, his first contact us, he's getting a phone today. Well, you've got to keep all that in track. Multiple fucking skill sets required that you don't need for direct mail. You don't need for anything online. And if you do, it's all fucking there in the dashboard. This is why people are not doing it. Never mind the social pressure not to do it because no one's doing it. That's why we don't do it, because no one does it. Why do we do social media? Because that's what we do. That's what everyone does. Like a fucking friend of my daughter's. Dad, why do we go to church every Sunday? Because that's what we do. Yeah, but why? Because that's what we do. So everybody does. So that's another reason people are not doing social media, doing direct mail, because it's hard and it's expensive. And there are people out there who will say, and I swear this is true, it doesn't work anymore. Everyone's online. People won't read long copy. Yeah? It's all about different paradigm nowadays. We've got spotty fucking 21-year-olds who've still yet to fucking lose their virginity in anything other than social media, including sex, saying, no, the social media is the only way it works now. That's because people haven't got the attention span. Nobody wants to read anything through the post. These people are fucking dangerous because people are listening to them and saying, like, yeah, this must be right. They are harming people's businesses. And they've never done anything except social fucking media. They should be taken out and shot.
I realized the other day, I designed my first ever, and I forgot completely about this. I designed my first ever direct mail campaign when I was 17. I wrote 3 letters, postcards, had to procure pens. There was something else that went into it. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, point being, I'd never felt so overwhelmed in my life. I was 17 years old. And do you know what I did? I said, yeah, doing Facebook ads is way easier. That didn't turn out too well. Because I said, we're still doing direct mail. We ain't doing Facebook ads.
Well, we're doing it to the extent where we are streamlining what we even teach. And, this is probably called shock and horror to some people. What do you do? Shoving people away. To the point where if you want to come and work with us, you need to understand something. We're going to teach you probably 99% of what we teach you will be focused on direct marketing and by extension, direct mail of some kind. We'll ease you into it nice and easily, but, if you're of the right kind of caliber and you've got the cash flow, we'll be getting you to spend tens, possibly hundreds of pounds to get stuff in people's hands. And we will probably talk about online stuff, certainly how the two can marry together for sure. And we'll say these things exist, but if you are the kind of business owner who wants to learn how to market your business online, go somewhere else, because we're not interested in talking to you. If that's the limit of your imagination, you are really not the kind of person we want to deal with. We can just not.
So, to recap, you can stick with social media, or
if you want to,
you can begin down the dark, treacherous, but rather exciting path of direct mail. But you have to have the patience to develop your copywriting. There's an element of learning layout, designing things for print, which is a skill set in and of itself. You have to get really good at procurement. You do have to be sensitive to your costs. You do, until you get really good at this sort of shit. As John says, you will go broke very quickly if you're sending expensive mailing to just about everybody. You then have to get really good at dealing with other people, because you will have to source things from other people. You then have to get really good at packaging it all together and the logistics of sending it out. You then have to get really good at managing the logistics of where everyone is in the sequence when the boxes are landing. You then have to get really good at developing your follow-up. And then, if you follow our way of doing things, you have to get really good on the phone and develop calling scripts, sales scripts, and managing that process too. So you have to be essentially chief of sales, chief of operations, chief of marketing. Get really good at all of those skill sets. We don't need it.
No, it's simple, but it's not easy. You got to wear so many fucking hats, and this is all what people want to do. And what it's so frustrating, because that's anybody here. I'm not going to be any response to this, but if I was in a room now, if I was in an event, what I would do is I would lay out a simple, 6 month, 7, 8, 10 step direct mail sequence. I would ask the question: does anybody here think if you mastered these skills, does anybody here think this wouldn't work in your business? Everybody would say that will work. There's no way it won't. And then I say, and how many of you are actually going to go away and do this? Not a single hand would go up. Or they would, and they wouldn't do it. Because it is hard work, and it's so seductive to go online. And you know what? I can guarantee at least one person would do. The guy onto LinkedIn and say, I've just been to this event, and the guy was saying you should do this online, offline stuff. What does everybody think? Oh, that ain't going to work. It's really expensive. And they won't do it. They will take advice from fucking hairdressers, massage therapists, mindset coaches, and all these other people who are not qualified to give marketing advice, and they won't listen to the one person or the few people who are saying, actually, this is all bollocks, this is what you should do. And let's end on one thing. I saw a post from someone the other day, a friend of mine, and this is brilliant. He basically does our outreach through cold calling. That's his thing. It works. I wouldn't do it because I don't like cold calling. Not because of a lack of self-esteem or I don't like the rejection. It's just that it's just hard work talking to people at the best of times being autistic.
Really?
And also, while it's effective, it's not efficient. I can only speak to one person at a time. If I spend a day cold calling, because say make 100 calls, probably speak to 20 people. Yeah? If I spend that same day writing a letter, I can send that out to 1,000 people every day for the rest of my life. It's not an efficient use of your time. It's just not. But hey, if it works for you, and I saw one guy say yesterday, I do cold calling because I don't like writing and I don't know how to write properly. Fucking great. Cold call. I'm the opposite. I don't like cold calling. I can do it. I don't like it, so I'm not going to do it.
And you can write.
And I can write. So, anyway, this guy, he cold calls, and what he does, he speaks to people, and a small percentage will say, well, I like what you're saying, but I'm just going to give it a go on my own. Let's speak again in a few months' time. That's the kind of the trigger he's looking for. And he marks these people down. 6 months later, he sends them a phone. We spoke on the phone. You said you're going to give it a go on your own. How's that worked out for you? If it's not worked out how you thought it would, call me. He sent out 3 the other day. Every single one of them came on as clients. And he charges a lot of money. But yeah, the phones probably cost him 20 quid a piece at least. And he had to wait 6 months to get to find that pump. But if you started doing that today, in 6 months' time, and you continue to do it, in 6 months' time, you're going to probably be sending out 2-3 of those phones a week. And a very, very, very high conversion rate. You got, and in 6 months' time, where will your social media be? Where it is now, pretty much, if not worse.
Not going to get any better, is it?
So there's a story for you. And this guy, he can't. He's. I won't. No, I'm not going to say that because people might be able to identify him. So I'm not going to. He's shared something with me, but point is, he's doing it, and it's working for him. Anyone could do it. Most won't. Almost nobody will.
There's method to our madness, isn't there? These things may all seem separate to other people, but there's a reason we tell people to charge high prices. And one of the many reasons.
And they wish to do this shit.
So you can afford to do this shit. And I promise you, at first, right now, that may all sound rather overwhelming, rather difficult. But it's a lot of fun. You should have seen John's face the other day when he turned up to the call and he said, guys, where can we get some cheap shelves? Everyone was on the team. Everyone was looking around. The fuck is John on about? He often does this. He comes into the calls and takes it completely off the rails, and we end up down many rabbit holes when I'm just there trying to, conduct the orderlies. What do you mean, John? He's like, when we send out our next load of books, we're sending them a shelf, and it just clicked for everyone.
Send them a shelf,
click there and then. It's incredible fun. Incredible fun.
It is fun.
I like to ask myself, and it's a new question I've been asking myself actually, is how can I make these prospects feel as if they're in like a James Bond movie? So if they were to get that mobile phone, they'd get like a secret letter that looks exactly like a classified document, or they'd get a cream card, a cream just business card with gold embossed writing, saying,
or
how you said you was going to do this. How's it going? Call me.
I mean, another thing you could do, for instance, this might be a bit before your time. Do you remember Mission Impossible?
Of course.
Sending the tape recorder, your mission, should you choose to accept it. You could send them something like that. You could
Matrix.
Use those words. Yeah.
Matrix, send them a red pill and a blue pill.
All of this is possible.
That'd be quite fun,
you should test any and all of it. What this guy was talking to about the phone is he suggested something to me which I hadn't even considered. He said to me, why don't you get your podcast, put on a bunch of CDs, write your phone number on the CD in a Sharpie, put it in the device, close it up, and send it to people. Portable CD player, about 20, 25 quid off Amazon. Send it to people with a letter that says, listen to the CD in the device, but don't open it until you listen to it. And then follow the instructions. So on the CD, you'd say, call us on. And we just an episode of the podcast, which we could either just take one or we could record one specially for it. One on this topic would be great if it was better scripted, for instance. Because these are unscripted, by the way, guys and girls.
They can tell.
Shit, you're right. So anyway, all right, Nick, I'm going to go into town, Mrs. EBG.
Pardon?
I've got to go into town with Mrs. EBG.
Yes, you do. We are about done. Look, if you want to work with us privately, follow us down this rabbit hole. Email Holly, Holly, at wealthheadbusiness.com. If you're listening to this and you haven't bought the book yet and you've made it all the way to the end, take yourself and your business a little bit more serious and buy yourself a copy. Don't be a fucking idiot. That's wealthheadbusiness.com/book. And on that note, sayonara. John's waving. Goodbye.